There is a number the government chose over 90 years ago. That number was not based on science. It was not based on medicine. It was not based on how long a human body can reasonably work. It was based on a statistical bet that you would be dead before you ever reached it. That number is now 67, and almost nothing about it has changed since. In 1889, a German chancellor named Otto von Bismarck introduced the world's first state pension system. Headlines celebrated. Governments applauded. Workers believed someone powerful had finally decided to take care of them. What the celebrations missed, what your history teacher skipped over, was a single number buried in the fine print. The retirement age was set at 70. The average life expectancy in Germany in 1889 was 45 years old. Read that again. 70. 45. They promised you a finish line and built it 25 years past where most people would fall down and die. This was not an administrative error. This was not a miscalculation. The actuaries knew exactly what they were doing. Bismarck did not build a retirement system. He built a political performance. A promise so mathematically safe it cost almost nothing to make and almost nothing to keep. And every government that came after him studied that blueprint very carefully. Fast forward to 1935. The Great Depression has gutted the American working class. Roosevelt signs the Social Security Act into law and the country exhales. The retirement age is set at 65. Average American life expectancy in 1935 was 61 years old. The most celebrated piece of social legislation in American history was structurally designed so the average worker would die 4 years before they ever saw a single check. Not some workers, the average worker, the exact middle of the population, dead before collection. They studied Bismarck's math, they ran the same play, and they sold it to an exhausted nation as generosity. It was not generosity. It was actuarial precision disguised as compassion. Now here is where this stops being a history lesson and starts being about you specifically. Average American life expectancy today is 77 years old. The full Social Security retirement age is 67. In 1935, the gap between retirement age and life expectancy was -4 years. The system was betting you would die first and winning that bet consistently. Today, that gap is +10 years. You are surviving a full decade longer than the architecture ever accounted for. And instead of rebuilding the system around that reality, they moved the retirement age by 2 years and called it progress. 2 years. In 90 years of compounding life expectancy gains, they adjusted the number by 2 years. Here is why that matters more than it sounds. If the government repositioned the retirement age today using the same mathematical ratio Bismarck used in 1889, the same proportional distance between retirement age and average life expectancy, the retirement age today would sit at over 100 years old. 100. They are not updating the system because updating it would require explaining why the original system was built the way it was, and that explanation ends careers. But the government is only half the story, because while Social Security was quietly failing to keep pace with human survival rates, corporations were running their own parallel operation on the other side of your retirement. Through the 1970s, the defined benefit pension was the backbone of American retirement. You worked for a company for 30 years. They owed you a guaranteed monthly income for the rest of your life. The risk was theirs. The obligation was theirs. The promise was unconditional. Then, in 1978, Congress passed a routine tax bill. Buried inside it was a small technical provision called Section 401k. It was written as a tax shelter for corporate executives, a bonus vehicle, an add-on that nobody paid much attention to. Nobody except corporate benefits departments. They saw immediately what Section 401k actually was, not a supplement, an escape hatch. If they could migrate workers from defined benefit pensions, where the company guaranteed the outcome, to defined contribution plans, where the company just made deposits and the market decided the rest, they could eliminate the single largest long-term liability on their balance sheets. They could take 30 years of guaranteed obligation and replace it with a casino account and call it empowerment. Between 1980 and 2008, private sector pension coverage fell from 38% of American workers to under 15%. No vote, no announcement, no national conversation. They just stopped offering pensions one company at a time and replaced them with 401s and the word choice. And the whole thing happened so gradually that by the time most workers noticed, the pension was already gone. They handed you a stock market account with a tax advantage and told you the responsibility was yours now. And they framed the transfer of their obligation onto your shoulders as financial freedom. Stack it all together and look at what you are actually standing inside. A government retirement system designed in 1935 around a life expectancy of 61 that has been minimally adjusted despite the fact that you are now living to 77. A private retirement system that was deliberately dismantled and replaced with a market-dependent vehicle that can lose 40% of its value in a single year. And a retirement age that has moved 2 years in 9 decades, while your life expectancy has moved 16. You are not navigating a system that failed to keep up with the times. You are navigating a system that was specifically designed to extract maximum labor while minimizing the cost of the promise made in exchange for that labor. The math was never on your side. The math was never meant to be. And here is the part that should make you genuinely furious. The entire financial content industry, the advisors, the podcasts, the best-selling books, the YouTube channels with millions of subscribers, exists to help you optimize inside a system that was structurally designed to under-deliver on its core promise. Max your contributions, diversify your holdings, start at 22, stay the course through volatility, trust in compound interest over 40 years. And maybe if every variable lines up, the right market cycles, the right health outcomes, the right employment continuity, the right decade to retire in, maybe you get there. But the advice never starts where it should start. It never opens with the question that changes everything. Why are 330 million people still building their financial futures on an architecture designed by a 19th century German chancellor whose primary goal was to make a promise he would never have to keep? Because asking that question out loud threatens the entire industry built around helping you cope with the answer. You are not failing at retirement planning. You are attempting to win a game that was designed before you were born by people who needed you to keep playing without ever looking too closely at the rules. The cage was constructed long before you arrived. The bars were never labeled. And every piece of financial advice you have ever received assumes the cage is just the natural shape of the world. It isn't. It was built, deliberately, by people who understood exactly what they were building. And the most dangerous thing you can do, the thing they never wanted you to do, is finally look up and see it for what it is. So look up.